And we do appreciate all the audience here, both online and in person. And the donuts were a good treat too. So I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves, but first I'm going to provide their names. We have Cam here is in our seat. His mom, Barb, is sitting next to him. And then there is Kevin. And then next to Kevin is Jack. And Jack is accompanied by his mom, Riley, and his sister, Alex. So they may have to collaborate, or Jack may have to edit their answers. We'll see. Hey, Cam, can you just introduce yourself briefly and tell us maybe 2 or 3 sentences about who you are?
Hello, my name is Cam Lentz. I am a 25-year-old autistic adult who has been on the autism spectrum since he was about 18 months old. Currently in college right now, pursuing a degree in human services, looking to get a goal, end up long term getting a bachelor's in psychology.
Thanks, Cam. Barb?
I am Cam's mother. I am his in-home support care provider, as well as his biggest cheerleader. In my spare time, I'm also a massage therapist and an energy healer. And Cam is currently at MATC in the Human Services program, and he is an intern at the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin currently.
Hi, I'm Kevin Thayer, and I'm a young autistic adult. And I think like Cam, I'm a part-time student at Madison College, and I'm also interested in studying psychology. I think it's a really interesting field.
And Jack?
Hi, I'm Jack Hazelton. I'm a individual on the autism spectrum. I'm also lucky to be a senior at Edgewood College, majoring in studies in education. I'm also lucky to be a 2-year disability advocacy trainee in the LEN program, and I've been very gracious of the opportunities that has provided me so far, and it's been a wonderful experience.
And Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm Jack's younger sister. I'm 18 years old and a senior in high school.
I am Riley. I am Jack's proud mother and mother of Alex, and also my son Miles is out in the crowd. So I'm a stay-at-home mom. Sorry. Don't know where this is coming from. But anyways, I'm so pleased to be here. And thank you for everyone. And I'm just, yes, overwhelmed with gratitude for all of this that's going on. But yes, I have stayed at home with my children and am grateful to be here.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Riley. I just wanted to briefly introduce myself too. I'm Nancy Alar. They mentioned my name before. I'm the past president of the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin and the mother of Matthew, 47-year-old gloriously autistic man who's been living on his own for over 20 years and is a college graduate. I do have a list of questions for the panel members that were prepared in advance, so to give them time to think about the answers. And if we have time when we are done, I'm not going to use all of the questions that we have prepared, but when we're done, if there may be time for some additional questions from the audience, and I believe some of the other panel members would be willing to stay around a little bit later if people want to come and talk to us. Is that true for everybody here? Good. Okay, our first question, and for panelists who have a list of questions in front of them, we're going to talk about question number 1. How did you find out that you or your loved one were on the autism spectrum? We're going to start with Cam, and so it's always predictable, go around to the end with Riley. So Cam, how did you find out you were on the autism spectrum?
It's kind of a difficult question to say how I found out, because when I first found out, I was 18 months old, so I don't have much memory of the 18 months prior. So that, and And then autism as a whole has felt like it's been a part of my whole life. I can understand where it's like it feels like your world's crashing down if you're like 30, for an example, and you find out that you're autistic.
Barb, do you have anything to add to that?
So Cam was growing naturally shortly after his 15-month well visit checkup. Um, Within days, he ended up losing all of his speech, became blank, and started the classic stimming, repetitive motions, and was actually diagnosed at the age of 18 months and was one of the very first earliest students to ever enter the ABA therapy program at WEEP.
Thank you. Kevin, when did you find out you were on the autism spectrum?
Yeah, so I didn't find out and myself until I was older, but I was diagnosed when I was pretty young. I actually have a twin brother who's also on the spectrum, and I think we were both diagnosed when we were 2 years old, as far as I'm aware. But as for me, I didn't find out myself until I was older, until I had a better understanding of what autism was.
Thanks, Kevin.
I
Jack?
actually have a decent memory of my experience of getting diagnosed. I actually was very grateful to be a patient of Dr. Wogrowski's here at the Wiseman Center. And this place holds a very special place in my heart because it's the place that basically allowed me to gain a lot of confidence knowing what I was being diagnosed with. And again, I feel like it really helped shape who I am today. And I really have not been the same person. So it really, that is what I remember. And I also remember being very grateful to gain a lot of great services in Wisconsin that really helped me develop into the person I am today. And I had the very good experience of being in a great school district that really helped me gain a lot of skills early on. Stoughton area, they have a lot of great supports and really great people that I've met along the way that have really helped me. And I'm just grateful for all the opportunities I've been provided.
Thanks, Jack. Alex?
I don't really have a time where I remember specifically like finding out. I just remember noticing when Jack and I went to the same elementary school, noticing just that he acted different compared to other kids, and then asking my parents about it at home, and then they explaining it to me.
And I guess the first time when Jack was born, I remember going to the pediatrician and talking to him because Jack was an amazing baby. He was super sweet. He never cried. Jack never cried. And I would ask, and they would tell me, oh, he's just, he's a really good baby. And Jack was my first. So I was like, okay. And then I started noticing some other developmental delays and things happening. We had just moved here, so I was part of this mother baby group, and everyone was always so excited to talk about, what their baby was doing and all the things that were happening. And those same things weren't happening with us. And so I would ask. So eventually, I think it was the age of 3 that we figured it out. We came to the Weissman Center and got some assistance.
Thanks, Riley. And just as a side note, my son was also diagnosed at 18 months, as Barb mentioned with her son, and he was much older then, but he was showing some classical autistic symptoms when I look back on him before he was even 6 months old. And his trajectory has been slow but continuously upward. And that, as Leanne mentioned, there is a wide diversity in the presentation and even what it looks like to have autism. In fact, I often think that our major problem about autism is we just don't know what autism is really. It just looks kind of the same for some people, but it's really very, very diverse. And I also wanted to mention something associated with the idea of what is autism, because I know some people who are very, very good at masking. As they mentioned, masking is, and then we're going to have a question about that later. If you're really, really good at masking, but you're on the autism spectrum, you look and sound neurotypical, but you're not quite. And so anybody that you're with and the ignorance of the general population about what is possible to be true for autism is astounding to me. They just, what ends up happening is people who are neurodivergent but are doing all kinds of masking, pretending to be neurotypical, always deliver unpleasant surprises to the people around them that are surprising and confusing and all that kind of stuff. So being able to do some studies about disclosure would be very helpful. With my son, we've got the opposite situation. He looks and sounds much more disabled than he actually is. So all of the surprises people get are good ones. So I don't know what everybody's dealing with here, but there's, again, the huge spectrum of where that happens. And take that into account when you figure out how you're going to manage your life and the life of your loved ones. Okay, we're going to go on to the next question, because it's very much true that people on the autism spectrum have unusual sensory issues. So I'm going to ask Cam, what kind of unusual sensory issues might you have?
Okay. I kind of have the issue sensory
Can you
wise.
talk a little louder, Cam?
Okay. I have the issue sensory wise where I just sort of like get like overly excited. I just get overly excited when I think like when I'm I don't know when I get it when I like get overly excited about like when I like clapping or something. It's like kind of like hand flapping in a way. It's kind of that's kind of I would say unusual behavior when you get really excited about it. It's the way you express yourself about it.
Barb, do you have anything to add or not?
I think the sensory issue is it comes and goes, and it's different based on whether or not he's overstimulated. Growing up, he was always that boiling pot of water that was simmering, and the tiniest thing could set him off.
Kevin?
Yeah, so for me, I think one of my biggest sensory issues is that I find that I'm sensitive to some noises, like especially like a beeping sound. Like if there's like a repeated noise, I find that that's something that usually bothers me. But yeah, I mean sometimes if I do feel overstimulated, I tend to like do hand flapping sometimes. That's one of the things that sometimes that I notice that I need to do if I'm overstimulated.
Jack?
Over my life, I had to have some things that would bother me sensory wise, such as when I was younger, fire alarms in schools or fire drills. Sometimes I would get like nervous about them. And over time I grew more and more accepting of it, and I wouldn't get as nervous. And now it doesn't bother me as much, but I would say that was the most prevalent one. It just kind of impacted my life in school. And overall, I had some really great people that really assisted me with that. So it really impacted my school life as much as it would have. So I'm really grateful for that.
Alex or Riley, do you have some comments about what you've witnessed?
No, I would just say, yes, that's the one I remember the most is like sudden, kind of loud noises for Jack. Definitely the fire drills at school. So they just made accommodations, to either let him know when they were coming or remove him from the classroom. But that was the biggest thing.
Thank you. Our next question is number 4 on our list is, what has been your experience with bullying, Cam?
My experience with bullying has been kind of more of isolation where I would feel like where I wouldn't really feel connected to like a group of people. That is kind of a form of bullying in a way because you're kind of tearing somebody down. You're making them feel mentally worse about themselves. But I guess if I was to answer more contextually wise, I've not really had much experience with bullying in the traditional sense. If that's what you're looking for.
Thank you, Cam.
I would have to say Cam grew up in a school district that even being inclusive wasn't beneficial for him. So most of his time was spent with one or two adults. And it unfortunately ended up being that the principals and the administrators of the schools did the majority of the bullying with Cam.
Ouch. Yeah, so for me, I think I can kind of relate to what Cam was saying. I haven't really had a lot of direct, like firsthand experience with bullying, like with being bullied. But I'd say my experience was more like I was ignored a lot of the time. It felt like it felt like I'd like learned a lot of other students or peers who could really relate to me. So yeah, overall, I'd say my experience was more so being ignored, like rather than like bullying per se.
Jack?
Yeah, I feel like I'm grateful to know that I haven't been bullied as much, and I feel good about that. But I also do have a story of one time there was this one kid I knew, one of my classmates. He'd be kind of like a jerk to me sometimes. One time he said to me that he knew I had some worries about fire drills and stuff, and he did mention to me that one time that there would be one, and I knew that there wasn't going to be any, but he told me there was going to be one the next class period just so he could get me freaked out and stuff. And that was the one thing I remember, but I was grateful throughout my whole school experience. I had a lot of people who treated me positively instead of negatively. And I was really grateful for that.
Thanks, Jack.
I don't, like Jack said, have any areas where I can remember Jack being bullied, but I went to school in a public school all the way up to high school. And then high school, I'm in a private school now. And both places I have witnessed and seen people bully, pick on other kids because of autism or other disabilities. And teachers don't really do anything about it. And so it's kind of up to kids who notice it to kind of say something. And it's really kind of sad, but I'm grateful Jack hasn't really gone through any of that, but watching other kids been hard.
Yes. I don't really have much more to say. Jack that was kind of a big experience for Jack to have. I can relate to the other gentlemen and what they were saying because definitely, kind of being alienated and not being included in the peers and the activities. And at his elementary school, they put up a special bench that was supposed to help where kids could go sit on it, and then the teachers would kind of pull them up and kind of get them with a group, and that never worked. So that was kind of the toughest part, I think.
Thank you, Riley. The next question I have here is actually two parts. And one part is for the people on the spectrum, and one part is for family members. And I'm going to read both parts, and then depending on what you fall into, answer that question. First part is, as a parent or a family member, what behaviors do you find challenging about those on the spectrum, your family, and how do you handle it? The second part is, if you're someone on the spectrum, what behaviors do you find challenging about people who are not on the spectrum or not neurodiverse, and how do you handle that? Cam?
Okay, for the first part of it, I think the behaviors I find challenging, it would probably be the ability to honestly connect with people overall, slash the slash the autism side of it, where you just feel it. And it just doesn't help with the autism where you just feel further disconnected from people. And I guess it would be mostly connection.
One of the behaviors that I find most challenging is keeping him self-regulated and not expecting too much of him when he is at that deregulated aspect. Because in all honesty, mental health is important and a home environment is important, and you don't want to poke the bear if there's no issues going on. So sometimes complacency can also be a challenge.
Thanks.
Yeah, so overall, I'd say I think kind of like what Cam was saying, I think one of my biggest issues is connecting. Like I tend to worry about being able to connect with people who are not on the spectrum. You know, I might worry that they're not going to understand autism, like unless I explain it to them. And then I guess overall it seems like neurotypical people, like they tend to like talk really fast, it seems like. And so that kind of makes it harder because it takes longer for me sometimes, like to process thoughts, and to engage in conversations. So I guess overall, one of my biggest issues is worrying that people who are neurotypical or who are not autistic, I might worry that they're not going to have the patience to listen, or that they're not going to want to. I might worry that they won't want to get to know me if they don't really understand autism.
Thanks, Kevin.
I guess the biggest thing that goes back to our earlier points that we discussed today, a lot of people still go back to the stereotype that, and they forget that autism is what it really is. It's a spectrum, and there's a lot of different things that people with autism or autistic individuals that they can offer to the world. And I think that's what a lot of neurotypical people forget. And as a person with autism myself, I feel like I've experienced that many times. And I feel like that I want kind of people to understand in the future that we have a lot to offer and everyone struggles with stuff. And I feel like I can play a part in issuing that message to a lot of people. And I feel like that could help benefit a lot of things moving forward and for a lot more inclusive societies going forward as well.
Thanks, Jack.
I guess my struggle is just I don't know, probably as Jack matures and grows into adulthood and just getting the life skills that he needs to be independent. So the daily living stuff is kind of really what I feel like. I try not to let the fear, of parenting like overtake me, but I often, I'm just like, I feel like sometimes I'm hard on him because I just want him to have all the skills he needs to be independent and successful. And I have to remember it's different. So
Thanks. I just wanted to add that one thing I've noticed, which I think has its good side and bad side, is that there is nothing in the world as relentless as an autistic person who wants something. Sounds like some other people have dealt with that also. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. It's question number 9 on the list. Do you or your loved one have any other issues like ADHD or OCD or any other kind of co-occurring conditions that you've been diagnosed with? Cam?
I would say no, outside of obvious, like through the growing up, there was like diagnosis of like bipolar from like doctors or schizophrenia. But outside of that, I would say no.
I would agree with Cam. I think some issues do come up, depression, anxiety. The downside to that was with the medical industry and the insurance industry, in order for a pharmaceutical medication to get covered, they need the diagnosis. So at one time, he had 7 or 8 different diagnoses just to be covered under insurance. So how about being 12 years old and being diagnosed schizophrenic, bipolar, oppositional defiant disorder, and you're never really guaranteed that you have those things. It's just that they don't have one magic pill to prescribe for autism. So he has autism, and it's lovely and it's beautiful, and there isn't a pill in the world I would give him to change who he is.
Thank you, Barb. Kevin?
Yeah, so for me, I don't really have a lot of other like conditions or disorders that are diagnosable, that could be diagnosed. But I do have depression. Especially this time of year, I find that I have seasonal depression, which is usually worse in the winter when there's less sunlight. So I've had depression and I've also dealt with some social anxiety. So I mean, I've had some mental health issues, which have been kind of challenging to deal with.
Thanks.
I've had ADHD as well, and I've been taking medications for it. But I recently found ways to manage it, and I no longer take medication for it, and I'm able to just really use my other qualities to really be able to focus without it, and it has been a really good experience. But it is something I know I've lived with, and I'm very comfortable with it, and it hasn't really affected me, and I'm really grateful.
Thank you. Riley, do you have anything to add?
Yes, so in our house, yes, Jack was diagnosed with ADHD. He did take medication for a short time in elementary school, kind of end of elementary school to middle school, and then actually didn't happen to have the prescription one day, and his teacher came out, and I thought, oh no, I forgot to warn him, and he was like, oh my God, his personality came out. So we stopped the medication, and he was like, this is great. And he hasn't been on it since. So he's kind of learned to manage. We also have my other son has disabilities, and he has epilepsy and OCD. So we have a few things going on in our house.
Thank you. There's a lot of diversity. And I now have a question about masking. Again, I mentioned before that masking is acting like the other people around you while suppressing your own autistic or unusual behaviors. For those on the spectrum here, do you do masking when you're with other people? And then for the relatives, have you noticed that? Or what would your comment be? So Cam?
I do mask in both my personal and professional life. It is just I hide. I kind of like, for an example, I would say when people say, "How are you doing?" I typically say good, just to kind of avoid being myself to be in a position to be vulnerable, plus to prevent my social mask from falling off. That
Thanks, Cam.
I do notice that Cam masks, and I think it is somewhat of a thing because he doesn't want to be embarrassed if he does do something. Also, disclosure is difficult. And I also think he sometimes masks his disability.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I also find myself masking, especially like if I'm in a new social setting, or a new social situation, especially if I don't know people as well. I tend to worry about how they might perceive me or how they might react to me. So I find myself masking, especially in my workplace, because I work in a grocery store and I feel like there's a lot of pressure in that environment, like to conform and like to not show my autistic traits. So I do tend to mask if I'm in a new social setting.
Thank you.
I would say back in my earlier days, I would inadvertently mask. I would unintentionally, just because I would feel like people don't need to know, or I would feel like there was that stigma around people with autism that would say they're. So I would just not intentionally, but I would just mask unintentionally. But then as I grew older, I began to be proud of who I am as an autistic individual and see it as a good thing because I know I have differences. I know I have so much I can offer to the world. And I feel like from now on, I will use that as kind of as a launching point to say, hey, I'm proud of who I am. And this is what I can offer. And I feel like I can use that as a launching point. And that's why I'm so happy to be a disability advocate and help people like me feel more included and just feel like they can show their true personality to everyone. And that's really important to me.
I think when, like Jack said, when we were younger, I would notice that he would try to mask it a little bit when we would meet new people or we would go to like one of our dad's like work functions and we had to like talk to all these like seemed like really important people, and he would just try to hide some stuff. But now he doesn't care, which is really good.
I guess I never really noticed the masking when he was younger. He kind of always seemed like an old soul and kind of did his thing. And so the masking part I don't really remember noticing that. I will say now, Jack is loud and proud about kind of who he is and speaking up for people with special needs.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm now going to move on to question 10 here that we have. And the question is, do you or your loved one have any unusual abilities or special knowledge accumulation that most other people do not have? The reason I want to talk about this is because I've noticed that there are quite a few people who I know who are on the autism spectrum who can do things that other people can't do, but they are so easy for them that they don't think that is particularly special. And they often wonder why other people don't do that. Like my son, for example, he still does calculus problems for fun. And which he didn't really realize how unusual that is, unless I pointed it out to him. And then he was like, oh, really? Okay, Cam, do you have anything that your superpowers?
I guess I wouldn't really say superpowers. It's more of intuition, where it's typically if like my mom's in like a bad mood, and I'll typically pick up on it through like body language or energy and say what's wrong and do that otherwise. Where it's like even if it's like subtle, you know, I guess that's sort of a superpower, I guess. But then just is kind of the superpower of having like strong relationships with people. You can pick up on the subtle things you wouldn't be able to pick up on. So that.
When I'm not in a bad mood, I notice that Cam has this unique ability to remember anything that he reads. So, for example, he is so into football and Survivor, this TV show Survivor. He can tell you who coached the 1967 Cleveland Browns and who was all on the team and all of that stuff. And of course, I don't. And with his other superpower with Survivor is we are now entering the 40th season. He can tell you who won number 2 season and who was the first and second and third person, and he knows all of the players of Survivor, which to me shows such an engagement. And I think that in itself is a wonderful ability, is because if these children find something that they are engaged in, they are just amazing.
Yeah, so I think that I'm kind of like Cam in a way, because I've always kind of had a knack for remembering random facts about random things. My special interest has always kind of been watching Jeopardy and watching game shows. And then there's this whole like website where they put together all the different Jeopardy games, like they're all archived online. So that's kind of my guilty pleasure, is like going through old games. So it's one of my kind of random quirks, I think. One of my unusual traits, I think, is having a knack for remembering random facts that aren't especially useful.
I understand though that Kevin plays trivia games with people and he's a real asset on those trivia games.
I also, for as long as I can remember, I've had an eidetic memory, so I can remember any trips we've been on, any trips, anything about any stories we've read, any sports teams, or just about anything I can remember. And that's long supported me in my education. I've always been able to, like, if I had an exam the next day, I've been able to just read over the study guide and be like, oh, I remember everything on there. And it's really influenced everything in a positive way for myself. And I've also been able to pick up the guitar, and I've been able to play electric and acoustic guitar since like 5th grade. And I'm in my school's guitar ensemble, and that has been a great experience. And and people are amazed by my skills whenever I play for them. So that's been really amazing. And I feel like I've been really able to influence a lot of people with the skills I possess. And it's really benefited me in a positive way.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, Jack has a really, really good memory. It's almost frustrating because we would sit down to do homework and we'd both be studying for a test, and it would only take him like 10 minutes and take me like 3 hours. But yeah.
Yeah, he does have a good memory. Scott and I always crack up, that's my husband, because Jack will be like, "Do you remember in like 2007 on November 1st, blah, blah, blah." And we're like, "No, we don't remember that." So he's always, and his brother does the same thing. So we're always like, I don't know. So yeah, he's got a kind of a crazy memory, and maps. Maps were like a thing for him. So directions, and he always knew. And one time we were like, happened to be on a vacation, and we were at the laundromat in London, and I was somehow, Jack ended up with me. Sorry, guy, but we were there doing laundry, and then I couldn't remember how to get back to the hotel. And he was only like 10. He's like, "I got this." And he like directed us all the way back. And I was like, "Okay, if I'm going to travel the world, it's going to be with you."
Yeah, I also have a tiny little story about like that. My son thinks in pictures. Many people on the autism spectrum do that. I have lived in the same house for over 45 years. I had to send a thank you note to my next door neighbor through the mail. You think I could remember what the address of my house next door was? Of course not. And I thought to myself, you know what? Matthew knows. I asked him, and I'm pretty sure what happened is he brought up a picture of the next door neighbor's house and read the address off the front because he immediately came back with the correct number. So that's another sort of interesting story. I've got one more question that I would like to ask the panel, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. And I would also like Alex to answer this as well, to kind of as a contrast, because the question is, have you had any experience with dating? If so, what was it like for you? And whatever that was like, whether it was good, bad, frustrating, weird. So I'd like Cam to address that.
Okay. My experience with dating has not been like the most normal experience of dating. Most of the dating I've done has been on dating apps like Plenty of Fish or TikTok or whatever. But it actually has helped me kind of come to realize my identity, like who I truly am and who I truly identify as, which is an autistic, aromantic, asexual. And that I've come to realize through that you know, like I can just be myself, and I don't, and it's okay to not, it's okay to be yourself and and not feel the need to be in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, so I don't really have personal experience with dating, with trying to date, so I can't really speak to that. But I can relate to Cam, I think, because I've realized that like having close friendships, like having close friends who I can really relate to and be myself around, I think that's almost more important than dating. I think having self-love is almost more important than having a romantic partner.
Thanks, Kevin. That's great.
I've actually had many experiences with dating. I had a girlfriend my first semester of college, and honestly, it didn't go well. And I've learned a lot from that, and I've learned a lot about myself and who I want as a person to be around. And I have a great group of friends that I've truly loved being around for many years. And then also, just this past few weeks, I've met someone, and I've developed this really loving relationship with her. And it's my first time where I'm really connected with someone, and it feels really nice. And it's really the right relationship for me, and I'm really lucky to have taken the time to find really what I care about and who I want to be with, and it's really helped me out. And my previous experience, even though it was negative, it definitely helped me influence, and it helped me find this person who I'm lucky to call my girlfriend, and I'm really lucky. So
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, so like Jack said, he's had 2 girlfriends. The first one was, I think, a learning experience for him and her and both of the families. And then now he has another girlfriend, and the dynamic is definitely different, but it is something that I actually kind of like because it's almost like having like a sister in a way. I have 2 brothers, but both of them are really sweet girls. They're super nice, and they're also have some disabilities as well. And I don't know. I obviously am a little protective of Jack, just watching him grow up and everything. So it's a little kind of rough at first, but I don't know. He just becomes really like happy, and a new side of him kind of comes out that my family and I haven't really seen before. So I don't know. It's definitely different, and I definitely didn't know what to think of it at first, but now I'm just really happy for him because he's happy. And I remember growing up when I was like little. This is kind of all I really wanted for him, and now he has it. So
Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. Now I would like to have any audience members that would like to ask questions of the panel to do so now. Do we have somebody, or are there?
So it was great listening to you. I do research mainly with little kids, but you guys are hilarious. And I don't see how somebody don't want to be your friend. You guys are awesome. So the question that I have is this: I do research on physical activity and all of that. So I want to know 2 things. One, how was your physical education experience? And 2, if we do a program for you as adult that involves physical activity, how you want that program to be? What should we include?
Experience with like okay, I guess I'll go. My experience with physical activity is it was kind of like in school, because like the special education program I was in, it was sort of like a controlled environment where you were forced to. But then as I've gotten older and like more independent from that program, you found out that it's actually pretty enjoyable to be able to create your own routine, do your own various exercises, and work at your own beat at your own drum. That is a good thing to teach at like your program.
No.
I can attest to the physical activity. When Cam was on his cocktails of medicine during his teenage years, he bloomed up to over 300 pounds. When he turned 18 and took it upon himself to say, I don't think I want to be on these medicines, you can look at him now and he is very physically fit, very aware of how important physical education is for the self-regulation. So
Yeah, so for me, I was never very athletic. I mean, I always kind of had trouble like fitting in, like when I had to like play sports in gym class. I was never really into that much. But I do find that just personal exercise is really important. It's really important for my mental health to be able to take regular walks. And I think daily exercise is really important for me mentally and physically. So I think just, I think overall, maybe not trying to pressure people too much into playing sports might be a good idea, because I think whatever form of exercise works best for you, I would say to just go with it.
I think for me, I've had a great physical education experience. I've met some great teachers before, and it's become one of my favorite classes in school. I would always love when I had gym class, and I always had a great experience. I'm a part of a Special Olympics basketball team, and that has been it's been really fun getting out to the court again after so long. I remember participating in basketball when I was younger. I was on travel teams until from 5th grade until 8th grade. And to be able to get back on the court, it's been amazing. And I have a regional tournament tomorrow I'm excited for. And it's a wonderful experience. And and I've began to already create so many friendships from that, and I've actually been able to participate on it with my friends I've made from college. So that has been a great experience as well.
Thank you, Jack. There is another microphone up here that we are not using if we wanted to take that out into the audience here. Just passing. Also, if you wanted to direct a question directly to a particular individual, let us know that. So, other questions now?
Hi. So my question is kind of based off of a personal experience. So if it is completely wrong, like to what I'm saying, just please correct me. But so a lot of you guys were diagnosed when you were like babies still, and from the experience I had, there was an age limit to when you can get diagnosed from with autism. Um, to get those services that you need. And so my question was like, how was your experience trying to advocate for your child during those gaps where you weren't able to get that service through insurance or government and public services, and also for those who those with you with the autism on the panel, what were some experiences and struggles that you guys had with trying to advocate for yourself in general?
Well, Jack was diagnosed around the age of 3 or 4. At that time, I was already doing like a birth to 3 program where I was getting some, someone was coming to the house and helping with speech, OT, and PT and those things. And then, of course, we were getting into the school system. And so we got an IEP, and we were very fortunate. The Stoughton School District is incredible as far as their supports there. So he was getting a lot of support that way too.
Yeah, I'm or
This is gonna date me, but that's okay. Back when Cameron was diagnosed, the autism waiver is what they called it, where he was allowed 3 years of autism ABA therapy, the intensive therapy. It was back, I want to say, around 2003 when Governor Doyle actually took that autism waiver out of the budget. So then that canceled those autism services for almost 6 months, but that was included in the 3 years. So not only do we experience the issues of raising the autistic child and all the challenges that goes with that, we also have to then advocate for them on a national level, on a state level, to get them the services they need. But I was part of the Autism Society back then, and the amazing support then rally around that, we did get all of those services reinstated because it is so vital and important. Um, a lot of things are out of pocket when it comes to services.
Thanks, Barb. Did that answer your question?
I just wanted to know the experiences with the panelists in general, on how they advocate for themselves with their disability.
Um, yeah, so I guess for me, one of my biggest issues was that even if I got the supports, like if I was in school, like even if I got the academic support that I needed, it was really hard for me to get the social support that I needed. I didn't really have a lot of people who I felt like I could fit in with, especially like in high school and college. So I think especially when I transitioned to college, I think that's one of the biggest things is having a supportive environment where you can meet other disabled students. Because I think that's something that I had trouble with, is even if you get like the testing or the academic support you need, it can be hard to find social support.
yeah, I feel like I've been very proud of the sports I've gotten, and I feel like Stoughton Area School District again. I had a great experience, and I know that I there's some kids who haven't had a great experience with me, and I'm committed to making it known that the great experience I had, I want that to be the experience of everyone moving forward. And I feel like the supports that I've gotten, it's helped me not only academically but socially. I've met these great group of these two wonderful friends that I have, and these two are my best friends, and they just took me under their wing. And to be in a great community like Stoughton it's meant the world to me. And now even with being a part of the Cutting Edge program at Edgewood College, that is also a great community I've been thrilled to be a part of. And it's these supports and these systems that I feel like need to be everywhere in this country so that students can have experience just like I did, because they all deserve it. So
Thanks, Jack. I also wanted to mention, because Jack didn't mention it, he is currently part of something called the LIND program here. It's partially done at the Wiseman Center here, but it is something, I believe, Jack, that is helping you learn how to be a self-advocate
Yes,
as
it
well as doing just all kinds of other things necessary to help the disability community.
yes, I have been thrilled to be a part of the Run program, and it's helped me gain so many new skills and so many new ways I can use my voice to advocate. And I'm thrilled to be learning all this stuff and it's been a great experience so far. And I'm really excited for on March 12th, I'm going to the Disability Advocacy Day. I feel like that would be a great step in my mission to advocate even farther for people with disabilities. And I'm really excited for that.
Thanks, Jack. It's now, 11:35 or so, and we are supposed to be done now. I'm very happy to see that almost nobody got up and walked out. It's very, very encouraging. But I'm going to stay here, and I believe the panel members are going to stay for a while. And if there's any leftover donuts out there, go get them. So thank you all for coming, and we've really enjoyed everybody here.